our next session, Built to Last, the blueprint behind a thriving skilled nursing organization, is now beginning in our session room.
All right, well, welcome everybody. We're excited for this session. My name is Eric Gillis. I'm the Senior Vice President of Asset Management for CareTrust REIT, and we've got three wonderful speakers with us today. We're just gonna have a little fireside chat, so to say. I'll let them introduce themselves. Troy, do you want to start?
Sure. Troy Bell, President and CEO of Tannabell Health Services. We're based out of Idaho, and we have facilities in Idaho and Texas.
Jeremy Stroyman, I'm CEO of Evans Senior Investments. We sell nursing homes and senior housing assets across the country. We have an office in Chicago and Denver, Colorado.
Mike Busey at Duro Healthcare. We're headquartered in Salt Lake City, and we operate around 40 buildings, mostly through Texas and Montana, a few other states.
All right, thanks guys. Well, we're excited for this. We really wanted to focus around culture and leadership within creating an organization, and these guys have definitely been involved in that in building their organizations, and Jeremy obviously helping operators do that as well as kind of some strategies around growth and expansion. And then we'll touch on some capital and how they've grown and different ways to do that. So we'll start first with culture. We'll start, Mike, with you. What has culture meant to you and Eduro, and how have you built the incredible culture that you guys have today?
Yeah, good question. I think, for us, the culture piece has evolved over the years. It's been something that started very different 17 years ago than it looks today. And I think from a management perspective on the corporate side, what we've learned over the years as we've grown is that the facilities really want to be a part of something bigger than just one nursing home in one city. We're really spread out, especially in Texas. You can drive hours and hours and not hit another building. And as we visit these buildings, that's kind of the overwhelming message that we hear, is that people want to feel a part of something. They want to be connected somehow. And so a lot of the stuff most recently, in the most recent years, has been centered around trying to incorporate all 40 buildings that were in 6 different states and really make them feel like they're a part of something bigger and maybe even more important, and there's kind of a central mission. And so, we could jump into the details on that, but there's been a lot of events, there's been a lot of, parties and celebrations that have taken place that are driven from the corporate office downstream to make those people feel like, hey, I'm a part of something here, and I feel proud. And just last week, we have a guy in our office that's amazing at this, that actually said people want swag, but they want it from Eduro, not from the facility they work for. So it's kind of an interesting concept when we have all these t-shirts made for them. They're like, no, we want Eduro t-shirts. So that's been something kind of front of mind for me as we grow to make sure everyone feels like they're a part of something bigger.
Mike, just a follow-up question to that. Who is it that mainly drives your culture? Is that coming from you? Is it coming from the leadership team in Salt Lake? Is that local, regional? Who is it that's driving it?
We've got a guy whose title is VP of Culture,
yeah.
Brand and Culture, so it's fairly specific. But it really, I think, is everybody. The team that I feel most responsible for is what I would call my executive team. And I try to do a lot for them, and they in turn have their teams that they're doing stuff for. So I think it starts maybe at the top and kind of goes down. And then the regional level, we have a regional president that has anywhere from 6 to 12 buildings, and they're in charge of that region and kind of tying things together. So there's kind of, I'd say, these tiers that go down to the facilities.
And do you have like a budget for that, or is that made up at the regional level? I mean, is there money committed to these culture type things?
There is. I don't necessarily believe in a budget for that part of the business, and so we just take it as is. Generally, what they'll say is they'll submit a proposal and say, here's what I'm thinking. We want to go out and do this activity, or we want to do an overnight stay, and we'll just look at it and talk to them about it and approve it and send them on their way. But there's a lot of autonomy at the regional level to do those types of events.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. So Troy, for you and Tannabell, what does culture mean to you, to your organization? How have you developed it over the years?
Yeah, we're a little bit of a smaller organization. We only have 8 facilities. And so culture is the engine that drives our company as a whole. As the CEO and president, I feel like it's my responsibility to drive culture, and it starts with me. We are not a company that micromanages. We give a lot of empowerment, autonomy to our leaders. We push culture, we talk culture, we live culture. We want everyone from the top down, whether it's an executive director, CNA, housekeeper, we want them to all understand what they are a part of, right? We call it the Tannenbell family. And each one of our executive directors has a budget, and we have culture committees, and we push culture, we talk culture, because really if we want to grow and sustain growth, it is only through culture that we can do that. If we don't have the good people that understand our culture, that fit our culture, we won't be successful.
How have you as a CEO been a part of that culture, like on the facility level? Are you in there? Are you a part of that? Or is that mostly the executive director there?
Yeah, so like I said, I feel like my role as the CEO is to drive the culture. I try to be in each one of our facilities once a month. I sit down with department heads. I'm in, stand-up meetings. I meet with the executive directors monthly, one-on-one, and we talk about personal goals. We talk about families. We talk about what's going good in their life, what they're struggling with, how they are, financially, how they feel their spiritual health is. And we grow our culture by letting them know, our leaders, that we care about them on a personal level. And that has translated really well into retaining leaders, helping them develop the culture that they want in their facility that fits the Tannenbell culture.
Awesome, thanks, Troy. Jeremy, you've worked with these guys that are up here as well as many other great operators. When you're looking at aligning a portfolio with an operator, from your seat, from your perspective, what are you looking at from a culture fit? Do you look at their culture and does it fit this portfolio? How do you look at that?
Yeah, and I think it's a great question. I would say most people think that we are trying to maximize value and that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Being a broker and representing the seller, the number one thing our clients want is an easy transition into continue their typically family legacy.
Yeah.
So in today's environment, we typically have options. If we're selling a portfolio for $100 million, there's normally more than one option at $100 million. And we're trying to truly align the seller's culture with what the buyer's going to say. And there's good operators, bad operators, and everything in between. I think it's transactions are hard, especially Eric, you know that. Like there's always things that happen through a transaction that can muddy the waters. And I think kickoff calls are so important to articulate why people do what we do every day, especially operators, to articulate the family message they're trying to deliver. And then geographically, right, wrong, or indifferent, this industry is very geographically centered. And it is a challenge to bring somebody from a very urban setting to rural Louisiana. And there's pushback for that. On the flip side, we think it's very important to diversify and continue to grow operators across the country. But as what these guys said, if the forefront of the organization's culture, we can transition basically anywhere in the country.
That's awesome, thanks. So Mike, one of the things, Eduro, you have several different regions and several different areas where you have your concentration of buildings. What type of leadership models have you created that really unifies the team across those different regions to where you feel like you have that unification of leadership?
Yeah, it's not overly complicated, but internally we've gone through a few years of trying things out. Some didn't work, some did. I remember probably 3 years ago, we have a CEO at the company, Chris, who's amazing, and I needed him for something on like a Tuesday, and he was in one of the buildings in Texas working on a staffing ladder with the administrator. And when he came back to town, I just said, Chris, this doesn't work, man. Like you've got to be in the office. I need you here. We got so much going on. I think we're past the point of you doing staffing ladders in the buildings. And he was pretty bummed about that. I think he enjoyed that part of the work. But it really forced us to look at ourselves and say, how are we doing things? And what yielded out of that kind of situation was the regional model, which again it's not new by any means, but we've gone all in on that. And we have 5 regional presidents, and the regional presidents each have their 6 to 12 buildings, and we give them full support, full autonomy, full authority to run the business the way that they need to. With us in the background, we're there, we're supportive. We're still in the buildings all the time. I'm in the buildings as much as I can be, and we support that model. And for us, the last like 18 to 24 months, the model's taken hold and it's been hyper successful, more so than we've ever been in our 17 years.
So with 5 different regions, do you feel like you have maybe 5 different companies that you're managing as well? They're so different from region to region, or is there some similarities across the regions?
You know, there's a ton of similarities. I don't feel like they're 5 different companies. I think there's little nuances. Some like certain software that others don't, and we don't generally dictate that. So we'll let them have that freedom to decide. But for the most part, I think what I like about it is when you go visit or you jump into one of their meetings, it feels Aduro to me. Whether you're in Helena up in Montana or you're down in San Antonio, it's the same feeling, the same excitement, and what I would say is the same quality of leadership and kind of attention to what we're doing.
Awesome. Now, Troy, you've largely been located in Idaho, and just recently you opened up your operations in Texas. So that's been a big shift for you. How have you been able to, focus on one region, one state for so long, and then open something up in Texas? How has that experience been from a culture perspective and leadership?
Yeah, that's a good question. We transitioned our first facility in Texas October 1st, so we're not quite sure how good of a decision this has been, but we're a very tight-knit group in Idaho, and one of the things that we do, because we do have that one outlier in Texas, we brought executive directors, we brought activity directors, we pretty much brought a whole team down when we did the transition in Texas so that facility in Texas could see the culture, the type of leadership that we have, and they would feel a part of Tannibal because they are so far away. Our goal, obviously, is to grow in Texas and to have a little cluster in Texas that can support each other, have some resources, hire some resources. So that's going to be a unique challenge for us. And Texas isn't an easy state, but we feel like if we focus on culture and we enrich this new team in Texas with our culture and love and take care of the people, we feel like it can be done.
Now, going back to Idaho, let's talk a little bit about that. How have you organized your state from a leadership perspective? You've got stuff in southeast Idaho, then over in Boise. How is that structured?
Yeah, so Idaho is very rural. We have clinical nurse leadership that doesn't work out of our support center. So we have a clinical nurse leader in Boise, which is 3 hours away. Then we also have a clinical nurse leader that's in Twin Falls, that's 2 hours away. I recruited my brother from Cascadia. I know we got some Cascadia guys here. And he is my COO. And so basically that group along with me, we have our support center. And, we can be anywhere in Idaho in 3 to 4 hours where we operate. And so we can still be in the buildings quite often. We can bring our leadership to the support center for education and all those things. But I think the fact that we are close is a huge blessing culture-wise. And the challenge for every company is when you start expanding, going to other states that may be different than Idaho, how do you maintain that culture? And that's going to be the challenge for all of us.
Now, you both have kind of mentioned your home office being more of a support center is what you call it. Mike, you described it more of as a support to the regions. What does that mean? What is, is the head office not making the decisions? Do you delegate that down? What does that look like?
Yeah, we empower our leaders. They're executive directors / CEOs, whatever you want to call them. We allow them to make the decisions for their buildings. It's their P&Ls, and we will support them in whatever they need to do to make sure that they're profitable and to meet their budget. So when we go down and sit with them and go over budgets and performas, we allow them, we empower them to come up with their own budgets. And then it's our role to support them in HR, payroll, accounting, all those things. We are not a top-down organization. We don't have enough resources to be. So we have to put a lot of trust in our leadership, in their teams, and then we support.
Awesome. Mike, anything to add to that?
I think I think everyone that's in the business would agree the workforce has changed quite a bit over the last 20 years. I remember when I was an administrator and survey came in, to me, it was our moment. I didn't want help from anybody. I was like, hey, we got this. We've been working hard for this moment. You guys kind of stand back, let us do our thing. It seems like the culture has shifted a lot over the last 20 years since I've been in the business, where now when survey shows up, we get a call like, hey, they're here, are you guys coming? And that seems to be fairly widespread. And so I guess our challenge on that front is not being too helpful and jumping in too fast and maybe robbing the facilities of something that they would go through on their own because a corporate person stepped in and did it for them. So that's kind of a constant back and forth that we have of making sure that we, it's not a hard line that we draw, but there is a line where we say, hey, this is a facility thing. You guys need to stand on your own 2 feet here. We're here if there's trouble, but we're not going to come in and do the job for you. And that's something that we're constantly learning on.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Jeremy, you've had the opportunity to give a lot of operators their start and help other operators grow. And you're really passionate about these new leaders really owning their own progress, owning really their own career progression. Mm-hmm. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? What does that mean? What are your thoughts behind
Yeah, I think putting employees and leaders in uncomfortable situations to, quite frankly, fail and get better and learn. And that's why we love putting operators. Operators are always so scared to leave their organization to start on their own. And we see it happen all the time that it's challenging, it's scary, but in all of our careers, if you can learn from your mistakes and get better and then surround yourself with really talented folks that want to grow, internally, we are adamant about putting people in positions that make them uncomfortable. I think complacency is the devil and makes us all very slow. And with technology, where it is today, and AI, I think you can figure things out a lot faster than you could 5 years ago to solve problems on your own. And echo what you had said about just, people sometimes want the help from the corporate staff, but sometimes you have to figure it out on your own. And we talk a ton about AI, and if there's one thing about AI, it's you can find a solution quicker than you've ever been able to in the past. It may be wrong, but you can take action pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And it's usually right, by the way.
When you are, helping a new operator kind of get on their feet, what are some of the qualifications you're looking at to get them their first opportunity, so to say? I think we've got some that are in this room. And
yeah, it's a lot of operators in small, either breaking off on their own or ones that are trying to grow underwrite deals. So they're underwriting from like a 2016 standard. This industry, we're all in it. We're so blessed. A base hit in this industry is a grand slam in any other asset class. So what we find is some young operators that are looking to grow will overthink a deal. And a base hit is a grand slam in other asset classes. There's a lot of wealthy people in this room that have only hit base hits and doubles. So that's kind of what we see is overthinking it, and then 3 years go by and they haven't grown, and we say, yeah, you haven't grown because you were thinking too much. You need to execute and do what you do and bring in great leaders and transform them and coach them and mentor them to continue to grow an organization. There's been, in the last 5 years, if you look across the country, there's a handful of folks that have been, I would say, very responsible in their risk and have grown patiently but aggressively. And we haven't seen a lot of people in this industry not make it out the other side. And again, not every deal is a grand slam, which is okay.
Awesome, thank you. Mike, when we think about growth and growth strategies, Eduro has had a different growth strategy than others where you have largely gone where the opportunity has taken you. So you have buildings in Texas, you have buildings in Montana and South Dakota. Talk to us a little bit about that. How have you been able to do that? How have you been able to support that type of culture? You talked a little bit about your regions and things of that nature, but is there a little bit more you could give us on how you've done more of an opportunity-style growth strategy?
Yeah, don't forget Fargo.
Fargo.
Personal favorite to visit in February.
It's one of our buildings. I love going to Fargo.
That is one of your buildings,
in
yeah. It's actually a great building. Yeah, I mean, that was, when we started the company, that was really the approach, is to go where the opportunity was and maybe where some of the bigger players weren't willing to go. And so it's been a grind. Fargo, joking aside, is a really tough place to get to. It takes a whole day just to get there from Salt Lake. a whole day to get back. So it's really a 2 to 3 day trip just for an hour or two visit. And again, I don't think there's anything groundbreaking here, but we've just the regional model and really being comfortable with the remote type work, not for the administrators, but really for us and just the video calls. And then a big thing for us is bringing all those people to the office a lot. They come in all the time. About every other month is the cadence that we have administrators come to Salt Lake. In the beginning, we felt maybe that push to go out and visit them in their buildings, which is really valuable. But at a certain point, it just became untenable to keep doing that with the size that we were. And so bringing those people to Salt Lake and giving them those touch points, sometimes they were fun events, not even work related. Like next month, we have a Christmas party that we're bringing in all the corporate resources for. Stuff like that has become really important. And then the day-to-day kind of operational is really relying on that regional president and then just the remote style work that we're all accustomed to.
Awesome, thank you. Now, Troy, you kind of taken a different approach where you have mainly focused on one state, and up until the 1st of October, you've been in Idaho. I've never seen somebody that has had so much presence in with politics and lobbying and everything that you do with, being a smaller operator in the state. How have you kind of owned a state and have made that your culture and your strategy to really be in that state that you're in, love it, own it? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a resident of Idaho. I love Idaho. I want to make a difference in Idaho. Every one of our Tannenbaum family members cares about Idaho. We have a lot of pride in Idaho, kind of like the folks in Texas, right? Everything is big in Texas, and there's a lot of love for Texas. But I've been one of those providers that Jeremy probably doesn't like, where I'm very cautious and slow with growth. It has to make sense for me and my culture. And so what we have found is, let's make sure we can do this state perfectly. And then when we run out of opportunities in that state, then we'll move to the next state when we're ready. Idaho only has 84 SNFs, and so we feel like our opportunity has kind of run slim there, so we have to look at other opportunities. And we found a good opportunity that makes sense for us financially, and so we took it. But I am more conservative. I like to own as many of my buildings as possible. And so even though we started in 2008, it's been a slower progression because we want to do things I guess the Tannenbaum way, which might be a little slow and methodic for some people, but it has been a safe and very rewarding model for us.
Awesome, thank you. Jeremy, what advice would you give the group on kind of strategic growth and evaluating a market before they enter it?
Yeah, it kind of ties into the underwriting when I make the joke of underwriting from 2017. Who would have thought that we'd have Medicaid rates over $300 a day? I mean, it's absolutely astonishing if you look back 5 years ago. Especially, we have insight into private pay senior housing. I live in the Denver market. Assisted living's $5,000 a month. Our Medicaid rate is low 300s. Obviously, Medicaid rate is the first to come to mind. And then having a strong leader that can go into a region, own the region. Every single buyer of nursing homes in the country wants a cluster or a portfolio. The fact of the matter is we live in an industry that's highly fragmented, so there's a lot of one-off deals. So to build a portfolio does take patience and time. But Medicaid rate 1, staffing obviously number 2. There's certain markets, it seems like the urban markets, and I'd love your guys' opinion, seems like the urban markets are a harder staffing environment than some of the second tier markets out there. Those are the 2 that come to mind when you're looking at a market. Make sure the Medicaid rate's strong. Obviously, make sure you have staffing, and then a leader to go there and truly wants to move their family and operate with boots on the ground. That's where we see the most success.
So Jeremy, maybe answer this question, or you guys can step in too. When you're looking at like a new market, a new state, how would you consult an operator to do that? Like with technology, is it going and meeting the association president there? What steps would you advise them in starting up a new territory or going into one that you're not very familiar with?
So we have a tremendous amount of data, financial data, to show what best in class looks like in a certain state versus the kind of the middle of the market. So we can guide unemotionally what margins look like in certain states. And again, we're also blessed. There's only a handful of states where the margins are in single digits, which back before COVID, that was the majority. Right? This was a 10% margin business. That is no longer the case given the win that we've all had on our back post-COVID, which is so exciting. So I think looking at it unemotionally from pure metrics, but then it always comes down to boots on the ground. Who's actually going to be the administrator? Who's going to be the regional? Who's actually going to run these homes? But we've seen tremendous, tremendous success in the most rural markets like Fargo. We're selling 2 assets in Wyoming right now that no one in this room has ever been to, and they're running at 25-30% margins. It's pretty neat with no agency staffing. And you go to markets like Denver, and everyone wants to work in a hotel, so you can't get staffing in our industry. So just looking at not only different states, but certain pockets within a state of where you can really go and do well.
Troy, you've just done this. You have historically been in Idaho, and now you just made the jump to Texas. What were some of the things that you did? Like how was the decision made that, okay, Texas is right for us?
Yeah, at first I was very leery and cautious about Texas because it is, I've heard horrible things about the survey environment, the rates, different things like that. So I was very cautious. I started looking into Texas 2 years ago, and it did not look good, right? But I've been working with people.
You don't like those high Medicaid rates in Texas?
No, yeah, I wish they were. But when you start looking at other states and comparing them, like Colorado, Texas, and we decided that we needed to figure out a way to get into Texas because of the opportunity. We just kept having deals come across our desk, and so we sat down as a team and said, how can we make Texas work? Because that's where the opportunities are. That's where a lot of mom and pop shops are looking to exit. That's where we're seeing decent rate increases. That's where we're seeing movement from coalitions and associations. And then I start calling coalitions, associations, and saying, hey, what's the environment like in Texas? Oh, it's getting better, it's getting better. And then you call other states, and it's like, yeah, you probably shouldn't come here. It's rough. And so, that's how we made the jump to Texas, is surely based. I mean, there's 1,200 facilities in Texas, and there's opportunity. And so we had to find a way to make it work.
Mike, as you have been in different markets, and how have you been able to keep your identity as an organization with all the different dynamics that you have in very different and unique states? I mean, Texas to North Dakota. Talk to us a little bit about keeping that identity.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's for sure hard. And I think one of the things that I've learned over the years is maybe the quality of facility leadership is going to vary facility by facility, and it's not fair to maybe apply, for instance, a Dallas-Fort Worth standard to someone that's in a South Dakota or a North Dakota building where it's just a different level of maybe leadership and experience. So I think one is maybe accepting some of those people that don't pop out to me as being, oh, this is going to be the best leader in the company. And coincidentally, our number one building that's won kind of the best facility of the year 2 years in a row is in South Dakota. And one of them, she's just amazing. She's been there for, I think, over 35 years. Started off as a CNA, nurse, DON, admin for over 20 years, and she just crushes it. And I think if you were to look at maybe this individual outside of that, it wouldn't pop out as like, this is the number one administrator in the company. So I think giving opportunities and maybe sometimes people that don't check all the standard boxes has been successful for us, and really looking for someone that is local to the market, understands the market, maybe has some tenure in the building in different positions, and then trying to develop them. We embrace the differences, but at the same time, I do think we do a good job of establishing a standard and encouraging everyone to reach up and hit that standard. And even our best building, this one in South Dakota, we're going to push next year to do even better and push this individual to do better, and she has so far.
Tell us about your regional in Montana and how you allowed her to buy a fire truck.
Yeah, this is a good one. We were just talking about maybe some of the leadership examples earlier, Eric and I just brought up this example of we had a really catastrophic event at one of our facilities where the fire suppression system went down. And that's a red tape situation, right? That's fire marshal shows up and he's like, you guys are done, you're evacuating. And to be honest, I don't know if she called for approval or she called for forgiveness. I don't recall. But she bought a fire truck for $2,000. I don't know where she found it. And got someone to drive it to the facility. She parked it in front of the building and got a firefighter off duty to sit there and be on fire watch 24/7. And then called the fire department and had them come in and said, what do you think? And they're like, this is freaking awesome. So it actually checked the boxes and literally kind of saved the building from being red taped. And I love the story because it's kind of funny, but at the same time, it really shows that she was able to go out and solve a problem that was hard. I mean, a fire suppression system is over $1 million. It's not something you can just throw in there. So she exercised a little bit of her authority and bought a fire truck.
Fire truck's still there today?
Still there today. Not sure what to do with it. It is parked in the parking lot.
Love that
New
story.
transport.
Is Care Trust interested?
Yeah, well, it is one of our buildings, so that's why I love it so much. Jeremy, so for operators getting their start, talk to us a little bit about the differences between a lease versus a PropCo.
Sure.
Advantages, disadvantages, what that looks like.
So many people
good stuff about Care Trust.
Of course, yeah, only lease from Care Trust. So many people want to own PropCo because it's like owning your home. It's something they've wanted to do. They want to own the real estate. If you look at some of the best success stories in our industry, they are actually the opposite in their OpCos. If you look at some of the companies in the last 6 years that have grown and created tremendous wealth, they were all through OpCos with partners like Eric at Care Trust. It is super interesting the difference in just transitioning a building that includes PropCo. We can transition an OpCo so much faster than a PropCo-OpCo deal because there's less due diligence. Obviously the landlord's going to retain the real estate and swap out the operator. I think it's part of what is your vision? Who do you want to be? If you can check your ego, and if it's truly about caring for residents and creating wealth, there's a lot to argue that you can get there faster via OpCos. With that being said, obviously there's some tax advantages to owning PropCo, but there's also tremendous risk. There's very little bridge non-recourse debt in our space. And I don't think people give enough credit to the equity needed for an OpCo. There's not much there besides the security deposit. So when you think about what your return is on your equity, again, you could argue OpCos are a pretty good business solution to growing in the nursing home space, especially for young, new operators that are leaving a corporate gig to start out on their own.
Thanks. And so, Troy, you've done it.
Yes.
To where you own all your facilities, and it's been a little slower. But tell us about your experience there, and maybe the rationale, the reasons why, and your experience with that.
Yeah, I'd like to dovetail a little bit off what Jeremy said. I started as an OpCo, and what we found in Idaho is pretty much, I wanted to go out, buy facilities, find facilities, and I quickly realized that wasn't a true option. I didn't have the capital to do it, so what I did is I went out and networked, and I found needs in the OpCo space, and I filled those needs. So we would go to small community hospitals, mom and pop shops that we knew were struggling. We were approved as consultants with the state of Idaho, and we'd go in and we would help troubled facilities. And then after we helped turn them around, I would work a deal with the current owner of the facility. And most of our acquisitions started with a group of investors that thought they would build a nursing home or assisted living, had no idea how to run it. We went in and saved them, provided a resource for them. And then a few years later, we operated 2 years for them, made them profitable, and then we bought the buildings from them because they wanted exit plans. And so my advice to, starting organizations is go out and be a solution for those facilities that are struggling, help turn them around, sign a lease, and once you become a good operator, you can make enough money to start purchasing buildings down the line, but it has to start with OpCo.
And subsequently, by turning around those facilities, you've been able to really build good relationships with the state and surveyors and everything like that as well.
Yeah. I'm the former president of the Idaho Healthcare Association. Tannabell is one of the companies that the bureau chief and the department allows to go in and do consulting when buildings are under receivership. And so we get a lot of opportunities to acquire buildings because people call us to fix them. So we go in and fix them, and then we say, hey, do you want an opportunity to get out of this? We can help you. We'll take it over for you. We just recently closed October 1st on a little county skilled nursing facility in Rexburg, Idaho. Beautiful facility. We went in and got them out of survey trouble in 2018, and this year we ended up buying the facility from them.
Awesome. Now, Mike, you talk to us about, you're at 40 buildings. You've grown really well over the course of the last 10 years or so. What has your experience been like with the capital front, and how have you done it from that perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what these guys have said. OpCo is just it's the least capital intensive way to grow. It's really, I don't want to say easy, but it's a no-brainer for someone starting to go out there and try to find some triple net leases and sign buildings up and operate. We don't have any secret sauce. We've utilized a working capital line over the years. I do think on that front, it's really important to get a good partner. As we all know in the business, there's a lot of times that we'll get crammed down really bad by HMOs. When they do audits and suspend payment, and the audit happens to take 9 months, it can get pretty challenging. So we've found a really good capital partner on that front, and it's been super helpful, and it's helped us in those times that have been tight to rely on them and get maybe some leniency on the way that they look at the line. But other than that, we're predominantly an operating company. We do own some of the real estate of our buildings, and we're now purchasing more, per Troy's point, where we've built up enough capital to go do that. But the operating company concept to me is still highly attractive, one we're going to continue to chase. It's just easy. Like you said, we've had buildings that we've done a Care Trust building on 3 days' notice. Mm-hmm. New Mexico.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Forever grateful. One of our last questions before we open it up to Q&A. The name of this session is Built to Last, and you both, as operators have built amazing companies, and Jeremy, you've helped a lot of people build amazing companies. As we look forward into the future over the course of the next couple of years to a decade, what are the challenges that you see to continue to build your organizations as you look to the future? I'll open that up to any of you.
Yeah, I can start. I think from what I've seen is maybe my opening statement on the workforce has been a challenge for us, is finding really good talent. I think it's really important now, more so than ever, to really wrap our arms around those good people that we do have in the organization, make sure they're taken care of, and make sure that we do things for them that are going to keep them happy and continue to grow. I found that with our team at the corporate office especially, when you stop providing growth opportunities just because someone reaches a certain level that maybe you think is great, is when they become discontent and they start to look at other offers and other opportunities. So, looking at least at my organization and how I view it, my goal with the corporate team is to, one, continue to provide really good pay packages and incentives for them that are dynamic. And we do some pretty interesting things on that front to keep people happy. And then, two, make sure they continue to grow and have those opportunities to grow. My focus tends to be more on that top level, and then encourage them to do the same downstream so it ebbs into the facilities.
Awesome, thanks. Troy?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of changes that are going on that will continue to go on as baby boomers age and things like that. But I think for me and my belief system, it all starts with your people. If you want to grow and if you want to be viable in the future, you have to be people driven. We believe in servant-based leadership. We believe in a mission, values-driven company and culture. And if we can retain our people by living our mission and values, we will grow them. Just like Michael said, we'll develop them. They'll have great careers with us. We'll retain them, and that will allow us to grow, because we all know there's going to be plenty of people to take care of, but who's going to take care of them? And we need those superstars, and the only way to do it is to be mission and vision driven.
Thank you. Jeremy, anything to add to that?
Just I've hit on it a couple of times, but the biggest differentiator between an outstanding operator and one that's good is technology. I think our industry is archaic, and Obviously, patient care is number one, but if you can leverage technology for everything else, especially the back office, that's really the make or break of what we see in the years to come. It's happening so fast, and a lot of mom and pops and quite frankly, a lot of regional operators are against leveraging technology, and the young guys and gals that are sprinting right now are leveraging AI to the fullest, and it's working.
It's amazing. Before we wrap up, any last thoughts that you want to give the crowd? Well, super grateful for your input and really the organizations that all three of you lead. They're impressive. They're the best of the best, and we're grateful for your time. We wanted to leave the last 15 minutes or so to questions. If any of you have questions for these guys, and we can help answer. None? There we go. Oh, somebody will get it started. Sorry.
Hi, gentlemen. My name's Christine. I just had a question about technology. I think, Jeremy, you mentioned it. Where do you see, well, I don't know, it's a complex question, but I think you said back office technology. Where do you see, like HR, for example, and technology with respect to labor management? What do you see working or not working?
You guys have any?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, a lot of payroll systems are coming up with different AI solutions for staffing, things like that. It's been a huge interest of ours because with limited resources in the industry, technology is going to play a huge part in the future for us. Because we're small and we can adapt quickly, and there's not a huge chain of command that we have to go through. I'll look at an AI option, and 9 out of 10 times I'll sign on the dotted line if it provides more efficiency, better care, and allows my staff to have a better opportunity to succeed. So I think that obviously is the future. The more technology we have, the better our industry is going to be, and I welcome it with open arms. It's just finding the right partners. We've had some bad experiences with some technology that we tested out a year and a half ago that wasn't quite ready, saying that we're having residents fall in rooms and different things, and we go in a room and there's not even a resident in there. We're like, what? But we're still willing to try because we know that's the future. That's going to help us in the future.
Mike, anything to add to that?
Maybe not so much on the HR front. Something I get excited about, again, drawing on maybe my experience as an administrator, was the admission process. Mm-hmm. And you guys can commiserate with me on this, but in my time it was face sheet comes over, the H&P comes over, you print that off. I'd go to the DON, bug her, which could take hours to get her to actually go through it, sign off, then your business office manager would sign off. It ended up being this hours-long process, if not days. A technology I'm excited about that we actually invested in at Aduro is it's an AI tool that scrubs your admissions, and you got to train the AI, right, to know what to take. But what the hope is, and we're not quite there, but I think we're getting close, is that we can offer a real-time response to the hospital in seconds when that admission comes over, and no one even sees it. And again, there's going to be bumpers that we set up so it knows, but it's essentially running pharmacy costs. It's going to run the insurance information, do all that stuff that takes us so long, and respond on our behalf to the hospital in seconds and say, yes, we'll take the admission, which we all know is a huge pain point for the hospitals, right? You guys take too long. As an aside, I actually did this summer. I made a lot of people mad, a lot of administrators mad, but I had someone at the corporate office call all 40 buildings to pose as a daughter of a patient having kind of the best patient you could imagine, right? Medicare, hip replacement, wants to come for 20 days. Out of 40 buildings, 50%, over 50%, we didn't even get a call back, which is really, it makes you upset, right? And then of the 50% that called back, it was like 4 days later, 2 days later, and I think out of the 40 buildings, we got 3 that picked the phone up, gave great information, and was ready to accept a referral. So to me, where technology and AI could really change the game is on this exact front, and probably HR, all these other fronts as well. This just happens to be the one I'm really passionate about and working on right now.
It's interesting. We partner with about 30 different operators, and I would say a good handful are working on their own technology or bringing it in-house. They're using AI to solve issues and problems that they have. And it's been awesome to see how personalized they're getting in their technology and taking it in-house instead of waiting for a third-party vendor to come bring the solution to them. They are recognizing the problem and trying to fix it with technology and AI. Other questions? Right here.
So this question is actually more for Eric.
I was told that I couldn't.
Put that guy on the
Nicole
spot.
said that.
Well, usually a lot of times the moderators are sometimes even, really part of the panel, but I'll take this opportunity. So I actually have the privilege of working with Troy and his team, and I can validate that they are fantastic. So everything that we've been talking about, really one of the best. But the question is, obviously, from CareTrust, you're working with, as you just mentioned, about 30 different operators from all across the size and scale. What does that look like in regards to the decisions that you guys are making and which type of providers you want to use and want to partner with? And what does that decision process look like? Again, for the record, I'm not an operator, not trying to operate with CareTrust. I'm just asking.
For sure. No, that's a great question. We appreciate that. I think for us, it's really very much relationship based. Troy is one that he's not a CareTrust operator, but we've definitely tried to work on deals in the past, and we'll get one done here soon. It's one of the reasons he's on the panel. But we take a lot of time in getting to know and vet our operators. We actually have we call it our operator scorecard, where we go in and we look at all the buildings that they're currently running. We look at their 5-star scores. We look at their survey history. We get to know the leadership. There's one of the criteria that we have is actually PTSD. Do they have they had the experiences in having a surveyor come in the day before they acquire a building, and that literally just happened to Troy in Texas. And how did they handle it? What is the experience of their administrators? Who are their administrators? Their growth strategy? All of this that we've been talking about, we look at. But at the end of the day, we also cherish those relationships that we have with the operator. We love those relationships. In fact, last week we had a big operator conference where we brought all of our operators in to Laguna Beach and spent several days with them. And we really enjoy and cherish those relationships that we have. And so they're built up over time. And sometimes it takes a while to build that relationship, and we'll do a deal. And sometimes it's quicker. But I also think that it's the opportunity. We try to take the opportunity that we've been given and match that up. It's kind of like, it's very much like matchmaking. Because although we love Mike and Eduro, sometimes this deal and maybe in Arkansas isn't the right fit for them at the time. And so knowing and understanding what works best for them and what fits their model and what fits their strengths is important to us as well. Hope that answers your question.
Avi Amin, question in general, with the ever-changing landscape and legislation that recently passed, what is keeping you guys up at night?
What keeps you guys up at night with all this legislation?
Yeah, well, we were talking about it in the state meetings just recently with the Texas executive, tort reform, all these different things that, keep me up at night. All start with tort reform because I operate in a very lenient state in Idaho, and I look at these other states, and that keeps me up at night, right? Our governor just 3 weeks ago, without any notice, dropped a 4% decrease on all Medicaid businesses throughout the whole state of Idaho. We've normally been a healthy state in Idaho, and we have seen a complete reversal of that the last 2 years. So I think the thing that keeps me up at night more than anything in this industry is we do not have control over our reimbursement at times, and we're at the mercy of legislators, governors, with the stroke of a pen.
Yeah, I would just add managed care. I think every state, it's incredible the impact it's had on our industry in, quite frankly, a short amount of time. And it feels like they're just getting started.
I agree with Troy. I think rate cuts, the threat of rate cuts, and I think the challenge has been politically right, left, center. It has become less predictable on who's in office to know what that's going to mean for our rates. I think back in the day, we maybe could have a good read on it. Now it just seems like I just really don't know. And I'd agree, it keeps me up at night.
Awesome. Any other questions? Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.